All right, everybody, welcome to another episode of the Local Experts Podcast, San Gabriel Valley. My name is Luis Cordova. I am your host. I am a singer and actor turned entrepreneur, and this show is going to highlight a lot of amazing local expert entrepreneurs in your community who maybe you guys can find a lot of value from. And I hope you guys really enjoyed this episode because we have an amazing expert here. So without further ado, let's welcome our guest. Jon, welcome to the show. I really appreciate you coming on today. I know I kind of already said your name, but if you can introduce your name, what you do, the name of your business, and all those good things.
Yeah, so my name is Jon Osborne. I'm a tax professional. I do work with small businesses and individuals to try and help them get the best result from their taxes. The business I own is Steward Financial Services of San Dimas. It does bookkeeping, accounting, and tax work and planning for small businesses and individuals. I've been doing that for a long time, and I really enjoy kind of being my own boss as well as helping other people be their own boss and get around the tax code.
That's awesome. And then how long ago did you start in the industry?
I started in 2002 and bought my first practice in 2005.
Wow, so it's been a while. All right, so before we get into all of the business questions and tips for our listeners on their taxes and all those good things, I like for people to know who you are, the story of our experts, because you're an expert. Everyone sees you as a tax guy. People see me as a music guy, right. But we're more than that, right? So Where did you grow up?
Mostly in Monrovia, California, and in Glendora. I was born in Hawaii and moved to DC. My dad was in the Navy. Then when I was about 8 or 9, we moved back out to California where my mom grew up.
And how old were you when you moved out to DC?
1.5.
Oh, so
yeah.
you don't remember much
unfortunately.
of Hawaii. Do you visit a lot or?
I've been there 2 times.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And then how old were you when you went from DC to here to Monrovia?
About 8.5.
Okay, so you probably remember DC a little bit?
Yeah. Okay,
cool.
Snow and fun and a dog that had to be dug out of snow, all those fun things.
That's cool. You say you had a dog that had to be dug out of snow?
Yeah, we had a wiener dog that the snow, one year it snowed like 4 feet, and so we had to dig a hole for the dog to go out in the backyard.
That's cool. And then what do you say, what do you like? This is a tough question because this is a local expert San Gabriel Valley. So be careful how you answer this, but what coast did you like better? You like that out there? What do you like it out
much
here?
better out here, for sure.
So far, everyone has answered that they like it out here. I don't know if it's because of the pressure from our listeners or, but that's cool. I like it. And then give us a summary of how it was growing up. Did you have a hard childhood? Did you have a very united family? Was it an easier, how was your childhood? How was it growing up?
Yeah, no, we moved back out to California because my parents got divorced, but had big family. My mom was one of 9 children, so lots of them still living in Southern California area, and so we had aunts and uncles around to help us out.
That's great.
My mom, cared for us. My dad was still in my life, but just not my main caretaker. So loved on both sides of my family pretty well.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's awesome to hear that they were able to make it work out to the best of their abilities. And so would you go back and visit Dad?
Actually, he moved back to San Diego around that time. He retired from the military. My parents are older. They were 40 and 43 when I was born. So he was basically ready to retire after being in the military for 20 years. So.
Oh, wow. 20 years.
Yeah.
So thank you to your dad for service.
Yeah.
So that's great. So you got to go back between LA County and San Diego. That's not a bad drive.
It's pretty hard.
And this is a beautiful drive too. So
right.
it was there was some negatives about it, but there was a lot of positives too.
Yeah.
That they were close by. That's cool. And then did you have any hardships growing up? Any hard times or?
Single mom. She didn't make a ton. We made it work in small house. There was me and my brother and my mom in a 900 square foot house. Not super tiny, but not large in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
But good friends, and made it through life.
And you grew up so you went to school in Monrovia, the local school district.
From 3rd grade. Yep.
So Monrovia, is there Monrovia High School? I'm not familiar.
Yeah.
That's cool. That's awesome. And then, how is it that you got started in this profession? So take me back. What was your first job? How did you?
Yeah. So. I took a test in junior high that said you'd be good at accounting, and I was like, that's dumb.
This goes back to junior high.
No, not really. I was like, no, that's dumb. I graduated high school, went away to college, did not have a focus yet on school.
Do you mind sharing what college?
Whitworth College in Washington State. I was on probation when I got there. I left there the first semester because I didn't make my probation. My SAT scores were 1200 plus. I was a smart kid, just didn't know how to apply myself yet.
And you said you didn't have a focus too, right? So it was probably
Right.
hard for you to work towards a goal that there wasn't a goal.
Right, 100%. And that is very much, one of my issues. If I don't have a plan or a thing I'm focusing on, it's hard to get things done.
Yeah.
After that, I came back here, and my martial arts instructor at the time got me a job as a tester in the video game industry.
Video game industry, sir?
Yep. And
So I just have to pause really quickly. So everyone watching thinking, wow, John, an accountant, he's not gonna have a lot going on. You got too much going on. So you said martial arts instructor, so you're a martial artist.
I mean, a couple years, I wouldn't really say that, to be honest.
But you have.
I enjoyed learning some things, yes.
This is super awesome. See, these are the things I didn't know about, John. That's why I love doing this. Okay, so you moved back here. You're doing martial arts. Your martial arts instructor got you a job testing video games. Sorry, I interrupted
Yep,
you.
that's
Where
correct.
were you at?
Yeah, a company called THQ. So that was 94 around, and I started working as a tester. Within a year, I was an associate producer. I worked there for 7 years. I was a full producer by the time I left, and I traveled the world and had fun managing teams and getting to see different things I had never seen before, and playing games. And then I realized just before I left that I really didn't enjoy managing the people. They don't understand deadlines and costs. They're creative people. Yeah. And my funnest part for me of that job was the planning side of things, the budgeting. What's our risk issues, things like that. And so I went back and got my accounting degree, and got a job in tax while I was finishing that off. And that's how I kind of got into the industry I'm in.
That's awesome. And I heard you say you were a video game, you were a producer. So what does that entail? Like, literally, if there was a new game, you were in charge of making sure everything ran smoothly.
Yep, I ran multi-million-dollar projects before I left, and yeah.
You probably have some pretty awesome memories. And probably some challenging, right, managing people, which we're going to get to later. We're going to talk about tips and tricks about managing.
Right.
But that's awesome. So then, what year was it that you got your degree in accounting?
I finished in 2000, right about 2000, yeah.
Right about 2000. And is this like, when you get your degree in accounting, is this like a 2-year, a 4-year?
So I always took classes at JCs and stuff throughout the time when I wasn't in school full time. So I had my first 2 years done basically. And then when I rolled into college to do my accounting degree, I just had those 2 years, and I did a full-time school, so it took about a year plus.
Okay, it's not bad. Do you mind sharing what school?
It's Phoenix, University of Phoenix.
Oh, University of Phoenix. Yeah, I don't know much about it, but I've heard really good things about it. Shaquille O'Neal is a University of Phoenix.
Yeah, no, it definitely gave me the education I needed, but it was about what you put into it. There were people there that completed the process but didn't really get a lot out of it.
Yeah, as it goes with a lot of things, right? That's great. So then you got your degree in accounting. So then what was your first accounting job?
I got hired from a gentleman that was a tax guy. He wasn't the most ethical tax guy, I found out after a while. But I just kind of learned. I'd always done my own taxes, and I learned from him kind of how to deal with the people side of things. Yeah. And he did like 1,500 tax returns by himself a year. He was crazy. I came on just as his daughter turned like 18, 19, and she had been in the business for a while with him. So the two of us were helping him reduce that
workload, yeah.
And then he started to try and branch out into some franchise opportunities through Jackson Hewitt, and run multiple locations, but he was more of a doer, not a manager. And so he was looking to us to do that. The ethics side of his issues were a problem for me, so I was trying to extract myself as soon as I could. My first child was born in 2004, and I bought my first practice before that year end.
Wow. So you start there. One of the things I picked up from what you said, and a lot of our guests share the same thing when I ask them, how'd you get started? Everyone has shared so far that they all had a mentor.
Right.
Like whether you thought in those years that he was a mentor or not.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, you know, and I find it so interesting. And I think this is one of the biggest things that people who want to get into the industry and are watching these episodes can pick up on is you got to find a mentor. I had a mentor too, right? So did you. So that's awesome. I just wanted to point that out for our listeners. Having a mentor is important. So, okay, so you buy your first practice, you said 2005, right? Where was that at?
It was out in San Bernardino.
San Bernardino. So
the city of,
The city of San Bernardino. And okay, before we go into the details, I ask everyone this question. If you knew that 95% of businesses fail within the first 5 years, what is it that pushed you to take that risk?
Well, I did, because I'm an accountant by nature and things like that matter. You know, I knew I'd already worked and basically run one of his practices for him. I knew enough about the industry to feel confident that my skill set was good. And there were a ton of things I didn't know, not having actually owned practice myself. But I felt comfortable enough to know that I could do it.
That's great. And then, so 2005, you had that practice. Was it a success? What would you call it?
Oh, for sure, yeah. And so that was the other thing for me getting into owning my own business was buying something that existed. I'm not a good go out and handshake and draw in clients and get to know them and build from the ground up. I'm capable. I'm going to take care of you. I'm going to do well by you. But I most of my clients start my base and then bring in other clients for me as recommendations.
Got it.
And then that practice, the prior owner was looking to do some other things, not fully retire. He was in his 50s, but young. And so he wanted to do other investments, and he stayed on with me for a year plus. We worked well together. And then as he rolled off, I had good confidence from all the clients that were there. And so that gave me a good leg up. It wasn't a cold call. It wasn't anything like that. It was a good relationship from the start once I was in charge. That's
good. And I think you said something super valuable, which is there's two options when you want to do a business. You can either acquire or you can start from scratch. And I really like what you said. I've really been thinking about that recently of, is it easier to just purchase an existing business?
It depends on your personality. It depends on your industry, right? Some industries it's not really practical. In my industry, there's a market. There's websites specifically dedicated to tax businesses for sale only. And so, there are accounting practices, but and so there was opportunity there for me.
That's great. So then 2005, before we started rolling, you told me a little bit, which was then you moved that practice, right? So what happened?
So not so much. My first thought actually owning the practice, this is maybe one of those fumbles, is I thought I could move it over 3 years to closer to home. I mean, over 3-year periods, so over the first 10 years.
Closer?
Like every 3 years, move it, like 20 miles closer, 15 miles closer, and over the 10-year period, have them, in my backyard. After the first year of working with clients and realizing where they were located, I kind of realized that probably wasn't fair to my clients.
And this was before Zoom too, so it's not.
100%, yeah. I mean, I could remote into my offices probably about 2 to 3 years after that comfortably, like log into my computers. But back then, it wasn't as easy.
Yeah, got it. So then you weren't able to inch it closer.
I decided not to.
You decided not to.
Yeah, and so I actually built that practice into something that needed me less. Okay. So I hired an office manager that could do taxes and wanted to do taxes. She became a partner in the business after about 5 years of working with me. And then I got my time down to about half of what I had been doing to start with, and then purchased the other practice that was about the same volume I had been doing before and was working in 2 offices. So a little still crazy because it was still more work. But one of those was closer to home, one of those was not. And then after about another 3 to 5 years, we sold. She moved to Texas. She wanted an exit strategy as well, and so she moved to Texas, and we sold the practice together. And I kept some of those clients that were interested in staying with me.
Yeah, I mean, because you've been amazing to work with. So a lot of these first episodes in the Local Experts Podcast, I wanted to invite experts who I've worked with, and Jon is actually my accountant. So I could see why they would want to stay and work with you. The transparency and the advice you give is incredible. So that's great. So another thing I picked up for anyone who's interested is if you've had a couple experiences purchasing and exiting,
right,
which is not easy. So it's another maybe not service you offer, but advice you can offer your clients.
It is a part of what we do. I mean, we don't do the sale part,
right?
But I do talk people through what it looks like and how to find good practices or good businesses that fit what you're looking for.
That's awesome. Well, that's great to hear. So now you're folding your San Dimas location. What year was that?
That was 2012.
2012, and you've been there ever since. Same location too, or
Same
no?
location, and
great.
I've acquired 2 other practices and 3 other practices and pulled them into my office.
Oh, got it. So
Yeah.
so you don't have a bunch of different offices now. Everything is just in one office.
I did for 3 years. One small practice we picked up was just closing, and it was in Monrovia, in Glendora, which is right next door
Yep.
to where our office is, and so
was
that
easy
we
to
just pulled
merge.
right in. It was a small, like $50,000 of clients.
Yeah.
The other practice I bought, which was a little before that, was just after I took over just after I sold my old practice, and it was to kind of fill the need for volume to
Yeah.
replace what I had before, and that was in Walnut, and then we pulled that back in after that was a little harder a takeover. The daughter of the prior owner actually had left just that same year, and I didn't know that. And so she kept a lot of the client base that was on his list. He was very honorable and reduced. We dealt with the price appropriately.
Yeah.
There were good things in our contract that gave me some security there.
That's very nice of him. Yeah.
But he was good about it, and so that practice was a little too small to keep by itself.
Yeah.
So after some time, I moved them into my
Okay,
current
that's
office.
great.
Yeah.
That's such an amazing story, and I'm about to get into some questions with how can people work with you and all those good things, but let's humanize ourselves for a little bit, because sometimes people don't know like how crazy it is to be an entrepreneur. So do you have any crazy, I know we can't name names or anything like that, but do you have any crazy stories, any crazy things that's happened? Because like I said, people don't realize the stuff that you've probably dealt with that people wouldn't imagine.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, so there's different industries that I mean, so I'm not super fond of taverns or bars. I don't really think they help the people that use them. It's not that they're illegal. They're just, I don't think they benefit those people who visit them on a regular basis.
Yeah.
And so I don't really work with those. But I had this was back in 2000. Right when cannabis was, getting where you could just first get your card
Yeah.
from a doctor, and you could and it made it legal for you, and so dispensaries were kind of starting to think about being, legal. I had a client that was interested in that, and so that was unique. Trying to understand this is a federally illegal issue,
Yeah.
and California is making it legal here, but that there's huge tax impacts there. And so I had to study on that a little bit. It wasn't something I was willing to work with for them,
Yeah.
but I gave them some insight and then
Yeah.
sent them on their way to go find someone else.
Yeah, definitely. Well, that's good that you were able to help them out in
Yeah.
some way.
And then I had a client who literally, so I'm an honest guy, and I try and do things right.
Yep.
And my client knew that, and he knew he wanted to cheat that year. So he just called me up and said, "Hey, John, I can't see you this year. I'm going to go cheat somewhere else and come back to you next year." And he did. And I was like,
The risk that people
I don't know what to
run.
do with that, because he's being honest. He knows that I'm going to be honest with him, and I'm not going to let him do stuff. So is that a good client or a bad client?
The moral
Right.
conundrum is like, oh, what do I do?
Right.
Yeah, that's tough.
Yeah.
That's fun. I'd never thought of that, because you try to find tax saving strategies,
Right?
right? But you try to, at least me, with my businesses, I like cheating, the risk, right? I like to sleep at night.
Right?
But I guess, there's some people
Yeah.
who are like, hey, I'm going to cheat. I'm not going to see you this year.
Yep.
I'll come back next year.
Unique situation. Not had that a lot. Just that one time sticks out. But yeah.
Hey, that's interesting. Yeah, I guess that's side of the industry that people maybe don't know about. So,
Right.
so now, how does it look like? Because there's people who are connecting with you. They're hearing your story. You're here locally. You're in San Dimas. What does it look like to work with you guys?
We try and make it simple. You can access us digitally. You can access us in person. Our goals are to work with our clients the best they need, and we try and make that available. We have good team at our office that helps support me and my other staff who do taxes to get everything done in the most efficient way possible for the client.
And what's the best way for people to contact you? Like a new client looking to inquire information?
Yeah, so calling us to have a conversation is good. I'm happy to do that for free to someone who wants to get to know me, because I like to know my clients as well, and sometimes we don't mesh. You got things you want to do that I don't want to do, and or you've got complicated situations that I may not know how to do or don't do regularly enough that I feel comfortable taking care of you. Mostly that's really large clients. Our kind of biggest client has been $30 million, but generally we stick somewhere it's fresh startup and then all the way up to $5 to $10 million of revenue.
Yeah, the small business, specializing in the small business.
100%.
Yeah, that's how I contacted you guys. I looked you guys up. I had a wonderful accountant before you guys, but I needed, as my businesses were scaling, I needed better communication.
Right.
And I contacted you guys, and actually one of the reasons for everybody listening that I contacted you guys is because you guys had the best reviews. So that goes a long way, right?
It does, 100%.
It does. You guys had the best reviews. So I called, and yeah, the reviews were right. Right away, you guys answered. I think you saw me the day of.
I usually don't do that. If you really needed something, I might have said yes. Usually we don't do same-day appointments. Yeah.
I'm usually sometimes.
It might have been the next day, but
sometimes I'm a little impatient, and I think what happened is I asked your assistant like, hey, she's like, oh yeah, well we can do tomorrow. I was like, does he happen to have anything today? And I'm not sure if it was the same day.
Like I said, sometimes we make some concessions, but we usually try not.
But it was great. That first meeting was awesome.
Yeah.
I thought it was great. I saw one of the things that got me is I saw on your wall the cash flow quadrant kids game. And I said, okay, I want to work with Jon. I said I need to work with Jon. So I thought that was awesome. So that's the best way to contact us if you guys call them. And then what services do you guys offer? Because the accounting world is huge. Like I don't think people understand how many services there are.
Yeah.
So what services do you guys offer?
Yeah. So our main core ideas are we do tax is our main source of work with clients. We do bookkeeping and payroll for clients. We do advice. So if you've got you don't understand what your retirement goals are, we can help you quantify that in a way of what you need in savings or what you need from sources of income. If you've got real estate or other things. And so, we deal with real estate, we deal with small business, we deal with individuals who, have just a W-2, if they feel totally uncomfortable with doing a tax return, any one of those levels, we take care of you.
Yeah, that's great. And I feel like us as, I guess you can call it consumers to your guys' service, I don't think we do enough research when we're looking up like accountants and tax. I think it's just human nature. We just look something up and want to contact someone. So what do you think is the biggest mistake people make when looking to hire a new accountant, whether for their personal or for their business?
I mean, fully just jumping in with trust. There should be some hesitancy and some questions asked. I'm an honest guy. I try and be forthright with clients, and so I like I said, I like to have a first meeting with people just to get to know us, better. But I see clients that a friend recommended this guy to me, and so he did my taxes for 3 years, and then I got audited for 3 years because he was just lying on my return. And most people don't look at their returns when they're done. They trust the person who did it. It is complex, it is confusing, and so looking at the returns isn't always helpful. Yeah. And so, they just sign their returns because he told them stuff and put different things on the return, and we see that on a semi-regular basis. So
I was going to ask you that. How, this isn't to bash on the industry, but how common is it for accountants or tax professionals to be dishonest with their clients?
I mean, I don't know if common is the right word, but it definitely happens. When we get it, we ask for the prior year returns for clients, and when there is fraud or inappropriateness, maybe fraud is too heavy a term, by the taxpayer. Yeah. But when there's things that are visible, we start asking lots more questions of what's going on to see if it's them or if it was the preparer. And how can somebody protect themselves from that? I mean, it's hard from that happening, but how can you spot those things? You definitely want to feel out the person's answers a little bit of like when they say, hey, I've got this strategy, maybe look it up. Maybe do a little Google research if you feel like usually there is something about that could be, is it okay to deduct this? Is it okay to deduct that? A little bit of effort to check that, but mostly if you want to get a gut feeling, and it is unlikely your preparer is going to be completely smooth and skilled and fully deceitful on your return. But I mean, it happens. You can't always protect yourself 100%.
Now, if that were to happen to somebody and maybe somebody listening had that happen to them, what's the best step? I mean, I know the best step is to find another tax preparer, but what are usually the steps you advise your clients to take? Like, how can we mediate this that happened? Yeah, when they have old issues that haven't been an audit issue and are just, we know that they exist. Our job so I'm an enrolled agent, technically my certification comes from the IRS itself. I had to test for that just like a CPA does for their certification, mine's only on tax. Mm-hmm. But
my license requires me to tell them they're supposed to fix it and required to fix it. But that's as far as my license and the law requires them to do technically.
Yeah.
There are penalties that accrue for filing a late return or not correcting an issue. But sometimes the best result is to let's see if the IRS finds it. If it wasn't your intent, I have clients that are fully honest and we talk about it and we go and audit and change those returns immediately.
Yeah.
But I have clients that are uncomfortable paying extra when they didn't feel like they did anything wrong.
Yeah.
And so we let those lie.
Yeah, it's up to the client.
I mean, the best thing is to fix it so you just don't have that stress anymore.
Yeah.
But sometimes you'd rather prefer the stress than the check.
Yeah.
So, and then, just try and make sure it makes sense. If you're having withholding appropriately and some guy says, hey, my friend's saving me thousands and thousands of dollars, or my tax guy's saving me thousands and thousands of dollars, you should go use them. Maybe talk to your current preparer and say, hey, what is it that you think you can do, that you think they're doing, or ask questions of them to say, what are they going to do? And then talk to your current preparer to say, does this make sense?
Well, you see so many online gurus now, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I can save you tax, and it's like you got to be careful nowadays.
Very much so. I mean, there's a lot of easy advertising, and not a lot of fact checking.
Yeah, I think so. And then, so how can people prepare for tax season? Because I find, like with my companies, I have employees who sometimes ask me for tax advice, and I'm like, I don't know. Like I'm
Right.
not a tax preparer.
Yeah.
I don't even think I'm allowed to give you guys tax advice. People don't know anything. They don't know about like the tax brackets.
Right.
They don't know. So to dumb it down for everybody, how does a tax bracket work for an average taxpayer? Because I find that people don't even know how this works.
Yeah. So, I mean, tax brackets are just increasing tax rates based on your income. So the more you make, the higher the bracket's going to be, which is the taxes on that component of your income.
Yeah.
So let's say you make $40,000. These are not real tax brackets, but if the tax bracket was at $10,000, $20,000, and $30,000 and $40,000, you would pay a different tax bracket on the first $10,000, and on each segment you would pay a different tax for that bracket.
Yeah.
And then the final tax bracket, if you made it over $40,000, you'd start to pay that
higher bracket
amount on only that income.
So an example would be with the $40,000. The first $10,000 would be taxed at, making this up, guys. This
10%.
isn't true. 10%. And then between 10 to 20,000 is going to get taxed at 12%.
Right.
And then between 20 and 30 is going to get taxed at 18. And between 30 and 40 is going to get taxed at 24.
Right.
So that's what you mean by tax brackets, right?
Correct.
I
That's
think
right.
people think that like, oh, I make 40,000, my tax bracket is 25%. All 40,000 is
Right.
going to get taxed at
Right.
that. No, it's not all the money. It's the different sections
It's
get
just
taxed.
the component that's in that bracket. That's right.
Okay, got it. Now, what are the best? Here, this is a two-part question because one is for business owners, one is for
Right.
people who are employees or then there's contractors. See, I'm telling you guys, it's complicated, but let's go with all three. So, the best deductions for employees. What would you say?
Yeah, so actually keeping track of what is happening for you. If you've got a house and you're itemizing deductions because you're over the standard deduction, then you want to keep track of charity, you want to keep track of the taxes you pay to the state, you want to keep track of medical on occasion. If you think you're going to have a significant medical issue that year, dollars out of pocket, medical has this unique situation and it's hard to do, but usually you probably don't have to track it too much unless you're paying for insurance out of pocket post-tax.
Yeah, and you said then this is for employees, so they could either take their itemized deduction or the standard. So
Right.
So what is a standard deduction for people who don't know?
It's roughly a little over $13,000 for an individual and a little over $26,000 for a married couple.
And this is like the automatic amount that the IRS allows you to write off your income,
Right.
unless you itemize. Which itemizing would be like I paid this much interest on my house, so I'm going to write that off.
Yeah, which has to be over the standard deduction as a total, with the taxes you pay, for property and other things to the state, as well as your interest, charitable donations, and if you have medical. The employee deductions that we used to have, where if you pay money out of pocket for something for work, that has been taken away until 2025, and then if no one does anything, it comes back again.
Okay.
On state, there's still those same deductions. So sometimes we itemize on state, even though we don't itemize on federal.
Oh, you could do either or. Okay, cool. And how about for a business owner? What's the best deductions they can take advantage of?
Bookkeeping. Keeping track of everything is the thing, because unless you know what you spent you don't have a good understanding of where all your money went, and you don't have a good understanding of what all your deductions are, and you're going to probably overpay on your taxes.
Got it. And then lastly, contractors. What's the
Right.
best deduction to contractors?
So really, I mean, that would still be self-employed, to be honest.
Okay.
A business owner, or they have the same situation. If they're getting a 1099, they're getting paid not as a W-2 employee, then they have to keep track of everything. And then kind of the subset of that is really planning is the other thing that's important. Knowing if you're going to have a bigger income this year and you need to and that's going to push you into a bigger tax bracket. Does it make sense to spend something? You have to have those questions ahead of time.
Yeah.
If you're going to sell a piece of real estate, before you sign a contract, you need to go talk to someone. You have to plan ahead.
So you recommend, and this was new for me, and I really like this aspect of working with you guys, that you can plan your year for taxes at the beginning of the year and then every quarter check up on that plan. Is that something you recommend for people to do?
Oh, 100%. I mean, the reality is, when very large, wealthy people, very large businesses, wealthy people talk about how they're paying such a small amount of tax, it is because they're offsetting things that are occurring in their business and their personal life and their, tax life as a plan. And that's how you get there. Now, there's a lot of things they can do that a small or mid-sized income person cannot, just because you can't spend the money to make that happen. But you can still have a plan for what best suits you in any given year that has a difference. We have a lot of years that are the same, and so we have a plan that's already in place.
Yeah. Which I think most people kind of just accept the fact that it's like, I got to pay this in taxes, there's nothing I can do about it. Well, sometimes there is if you sit with a professional like yourself, right?
Oh, 100%. And we, unfortunately, have those conversations about once a year with somebody that says, hey, I did this. It's March, of the next year. What can I do? Nothing.
It's like
we're
too
way
late
past any choices you can make.
from the last year.
Yeah.
Because once the year ends,
You cannot do
you
anything
cannot
for
do
the last
anything
year.
to change it. Yeah. And how would you answer the question that I see on online forums? I say stuff like, why would I hire somebody to help me do my taxes when I can do it myself?
I on occasion, have clients that should do themselves, and that's okay. A W-2 employee that only has one W-2, no other things going on in their life, they really should do it on their own. But I have clients that are uncomfortable enough that this stresses them out so much that it makes sense to pay me to take that stress off. But the tax law is complex. It changes every year. Your job is not to pay attention to that, and it takes you time to do that. And so if you can go have fun or do something else with it 5 to 10 hours of your time, to not research your stuff, then you're probably getting way more than what you pay me out of what you pay me.
Yeah.
If you really, really enjoy knowing all of those things, then maybe you like to do your own taxes, and that's fine. I have one client that was a good friend that came to me when they had a unique situation that year, and we did their taxes that year. But then after that, I said, "You love doing this. Do this on your own."
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine loving doing my taxes.
I understand. It is a unique person.
Yes.
I'm one of those people.
I think so. Yeah, it's definitely tough. So then how about the people who are doing their own books? When do you recommend for a business owner or a contractor to do their own books, or somebody to hire somebody to do their books?
Yeah, so I really like people to have an understanding of what their business expenses are, where their money's going. So as long as they can, before they're too busy. So when you're starting up a business and it's zero, nothing going on, we're building it from scratch, I really try and encourage people, if you are comfortable doing this, do it for as long as you can until you can make more money than you're going to pay me to do it. But if I do have clients that again are on that uncomfortable, aren't logic-minded people. They're creative, and they just aren't going to get it, and they're going to mess something up.
Yeah.
So it does very specifically matter to who I'm talking to.
And I think time too.
Yeah.
Because I'm in a situation with you guys right now where I have a couple other companies that we're starting from the ground, and there's like almost no transactions in there. But I'm like, I don't have, like, I can't, like, I'd rather spend time with my son.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I have a gardener for my small house for that reason. Like, we never wanted to spend the time. We wanted to take that time for family.
Yeah, for family time.
Yep.
I think so. I think that's super great advice. So guys, you guys are hearing here, expert on all these things. That's what we call Local Experts Podcast, right? So we're going to move on to some rapid fire business tips. So this is a section where we answer maybe some common questions for listeners who have tax questions. If you guys were on the fence about who to contact before they're full and they can't take on any more clients, maybe you guys should contact them soon if you're on the fence for business owners, contractors, anyone. But right now, this next section is a rapid fire on business questions for aspiring entrepreneurs who are maybe in an industry and they want to hear some advice from a seasoned entrepreneur like yourself, or someone who wants to get into your industry and has some questions. So let's go. Here's some rapid fire business tips. So when do you think is the best season of the year? If someone was looking to start, like, I want to become an accountant, I just got my degree, or I want to get my degree, is there a best seasonality for this, like in the year to get started?
I mean, trying to start earlier, if you're going to be in tax, you want to be, season starts late January, but we prepare ahead of time. So you really need to be trying to get a job sometime in, December, November to really get comfortable, be ready.
Okay.
Sometimes getting in the summer once things have cooled down also works for some businesses. They've either decided to let someone go that wasn't working out,
Yep.
and they're looking for new. March, probably not a good time to get into the industry.
Summer, December, right? When
yeah.
it's calmer. Okay,
I mean,
good. And then what would you say is a startup cost? Like someone wants to be their own boss, be their own, like not work for somebody. What's the startup cost?
You mean in my industry?
Yes.
Oh, I guess it depends on what you want to do. If you're going to go shake hands and find clients, you want to keep your job and add enough clients till you're running crazy and can't do any more, and then let your other job go. So you have enough, income support to make that work.
Yeah. So that startup cost would be your time.
Exactly.
What if you wanted to purchase, like how you did?
Yeah. So volume size. So our industry kind of does a 1.3 times gross as a metric for
Oh,
pricing.
really? 1.3 times gross?
Times gross.
Really?
Yeah. So, because we generally are a factor in that already, and we know when we can make money, so we know what our time is worth.
That's interesting.
And so, depending on the size of the practice you're looking at, now sometimes as you get bigger, that gross number gets actually a little tighter. And some virtual practices actually do like 1.5 times gross because they can be moved anywhere.
Yeah. And am I wrong to say that in some industries it's like between 2 to 4 times their profit?
Their net. That's
their
correct.
net
For
times
sure.
3 years, right, or something like that.
Net
actually,
for that
would
year
be it,
and then
yeah.
the multiplier. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Their profit for the year times 2 or
sure.
4, depending.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. That's very interesting.
Yeah,
Okay.
there
cool.
are other gross industries too, but but functionally we are one of those unique ones. Yeah.
So let's just say they're doing low volume and they're only doing 100,000 a year. Then it would be 1.5. So it'd be 150 for that.
If they're virtual, if they don't see clients in their office.
If they do, it's 1.3.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Or less, because again, you can't really support yourself on that, so sometimes they get a little less. So there's kind of a sweet spot in the middle that gets a little bit more, and then you get to where you have to run a business, as bigger than yourself, and so it can start to erode that. But it's usually 1.2 to 1.3.
And where do you say people are usually getting funding for this? Because a lot of entrepreneurs say, well, I can't start because I don't have money. I haven't saved up. Is there other ways to get creative? What do you
So
think
when you're
about
starting from scratch and not buying something, you generally, you're going to use credit cards, which I don't really like. I'd rather have you use savings, because if you can't save to start, then you might not be able to make your balance sheet work or your budget work while you're in business. But you need to be able to figure out what your costs are for about 6 months, to have enough cash to manage that.
Save up
as
for
you're
those
trying
6
to
months.
transition. If you think it's a 2 to 3 year process to transition from your job, but it kind of depends. Again, if you have a low cost, you want a physical location, you got to cover rent for several months to be able to plan for that. So you need to put a good budget together of what you think this is going to cost.
And do you recommend looking for investors or SBA loans?
I mean, for what I do, not so much. That doesn't make sense. Investors tend to, they're going to take away your blood, sweat, and tears that you put into this business and put it in their pocket, right? But they're going to give you some money to make it happen.
Because you usually give them equity, right? Is that what you mean? Because you're giving them equity?
That's right. But sometimes that has value if you're going to go large and not, and scale up much bigger than just yourself.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay. Got it.
So the bigger you're trying to go, the more you need someone else's hands, or you just need to take it a little slower and spend 5 to 10 years to get there instead of 1 to 2.
And what would you say is a work-life balance for someone in your industry?
So tax season, not so much. My wife calls
part of
herself a tax widow during tax season.
That's nature of the beast, though, right?
It is. It is. I get to be a little, workaholic during tax season, and then the rest of the season, our business is such that we're relatively full time, but not pressure.
Okay, got it. And then what would you say is the best things giving for sales, the best advice for sales? If someone was trying to get more clients, get more customers.
I mean, I think smile and be earnest. It's important to look someone in the eye and care about what they're communicating to you, and try and get them to care about what you're providing.
I think you're right, because if I would have gone into your office and you were mean, I don't think I would have been like, I don't know, I want to work with Jon.
I mean, there are some people who do that well. They just don't care, but they know they're really good at what they do, and they can sell that. I'm not that guy.
And what do you think for market? Is there any marketing campaign that maybe you guys have ever had to do that's worked?
I have been really good about growing through what I acquire, and then word of mouth. We care for our clients well, and they in turn recommend people to us. Going out and handshaking is valuable. Getting your face in front of someone else who doesn't know you can create a client. That's
great. And then the last rapid fire question I have for you is managing employees. What's the best advice you can give someone who's growing and scaling and they're managing employees?
I mean, I think caring about them to where they're going is super important.
You know what's funny about that, Jon? Everyone that I've asked that question has said the same thing. Yeah. And I think it's so valuable, caring for your team. Yeah. Because you hear so many horror stories, right? Of people coming from jobs, they're like, my boss was mean. So I think that's very valuable. Everyone so far has said that.
Yeah, so I just read an article that someone was saying they're retiring tomorrow, and their boss thinks they're going to be able to reach out to them, for all the knowledge they carry with them, but they aren't ever going to answer the phone because they hate them, because they were unfair, unfriendly, and they just said, no, I'm done finally.
If only they would have had a good relationship, I'm sure they would have been okay helping them out.
Right.
That's true. That's very valuable. Well, guys, this has been amazing, valuable insights for any entrepreneurs who are aspiring. This is great. We're going to move on to one last rapid fire section before we finish off. This is going to be more about your personal opinions about our area and so forth. So let's start with the first question. So the first one going, what were your favorite spots growing up in the San Gabriel Valley?
So I loved hiking in Monrovia Canyon, Grand Burgers, chili cheese fries in Glendora.
Grand Burger.
Yeah.
They're still there.
Yeah. And growing up, we ran all around. So, I love the community and just, being in a smallish town area.
Well, that's how the San Gabriel Valley feels. People think of Los Angeles and they don't realize that there's hidden gems like this.
Right. So we love the Laverne Parade every 4th of July.
Oh, yeah. Maybe when I was a teenager, I used to sing in that parade.
Oh, really?
I used to rent a float and I used to perform Bruce Springsteen.
Right on.
So that's cool. Awesome. I love that parade as well.
Yeah.
And now, what are the places you like to hang around now? Any places you recommend?
We're a little bit homebodies. We like the restaurants around us. And so the good you find that good haunt locally, and you just kind of
stick to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. So my wife and I, we really like going to Claremont, and we like going to Walters.
Right.
That's our spot.
Yeah.
Walters. So
yeah.
That's cool. That's good to hear. Now, this is kind of a trick question.
Okay.
There's two-parter. What's your favorite street? What would you say is your favorite street in the San Gabriel Valley?
I don't know. Street. Fond memories of riding my bike all around Monrovia. And home was on the street I lived in, so probably May Avenue was pretty good. Nice big hill, could skateboard and mountain bike down it, and
oh, nice,
super fun.
That's cool. Now I'm curious to hear how you answer this question. What's your favorite freeway in the San Gabriel Valley?
I think when the 210 was still being built, it was super fun to go out east on that, because there was no traffic after the 57, so that was pretty fun.
Well, what's funny, because the way you answered it is you're talking about the past, but you didn't tell me about your favorite freeway presently. And the reason I bring that up is because everyone who I asked that question, no one can tell me their favorite freeway right now. They're like, well, this one's horrible. They tell me their least favorite.
Right.
But they don't tell me their favorite. So that's interesting. Back in the day, the 210. Okay, cool. Right. Now, what would you say is your favorite city in the area?
My heart grew up in Monrovia. Glendora is where we live now and have lived for 20 plus years. So, we really like our hometown.
That's good. Yeah, Glendora is an amazing community. It's an amazing community. Okay, now what is an interesting story that you've lived or that has happened to you that people wouldn't have imagined has happened to you because, you're a professional, you're an accountant. Like people who've told us here, like celebrity stories, ghost stories, crime stories, just some, is there anything interesting?
So I had a friend when I was younger. He was a very loved life, gregarious guy. So he used to take us and some other people through the sewers of San Dimas to a place called Zelda that he named. And actually, so there was some remnants of, satanic worship in those places. And so he would just tell ghost stories as we went and, do crazy things. So.
That's pretty creepy.
Yeah.
I think I know what you're talking about because when I was a teenager, went through, I think, some sewage systems too. It was by the creek in San Dimas, which is called, what is that area called? Just the San Dimas Creek?
San Dimas Canyon, yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah, something like that. So maybe it was the same area. And
Yeah.
yeah, you see stuff on the walls in there.
Yeah,
You're
yeah.
like, I don't think I should be here.
For sure.
Yeah, and now as an adult, you're like, why did I go down there? Because
Right.
there could have been weird people down there.
Yeah, so he would have one of his other friends kind of hang out in the dark, waiting for us, and
Scare you
people.
guys?
Yeah.
That's cool to hear.
Yeah.
That's a local kid
Yep.
story to hear right there. That's awesome. Okay, now, what is probably the thing you love the most about the community here, the San Gabriel Valley?
Yeah, it's pretty laid back. I think we have good people that I don't feel like there's angst or intrigue in our community. I think there's people who just love where they live, and they're friendly.
I agree. And what legacy do you wish to leave behind here in the community?
I like to care for my clients and help them build what they have and keep the most of it they can from the IRS. So
That's great. And why should people in the community work with you in your business with your financial company? Which, by the way, we're going to put all the info on his financial company down in the description of all these videos. But why should they work with you?
yeah, I mean we care about our clients. Our staff is nice. We try and help you get the best result from your situation, and we're gonna spend the time to do that.
And one more time, I think we talked about it a little bit at the beginning of this episode, but where can they find you guys if they want to find your information and contact you?
Yeah, we're in San Dimas, right across from the post office and City Hall, in a strip mall there, 150 North Walnut in San Dimas, and we have a website, yoursteward.com. So we believe in stewardship of your assets, just like they're yours, or just like they're ours, I'm sorry. And so we try and take that principle seriously, and so that's why it's in our name.
Got it. And then the last question I have for everyone on the podcast is are you currently hiring? Because there might be people on there who's hiring. Are you currently hiring?
We just filled a position a little while ago, and so at the moment we are fully staffed.
If you were hiring, where do you usually post your?
So we do hire in about a month for our tax front office staff. So 2 part-time people generally for this tax season, and we post that in local college community boards as well as in Craigslist. It seems to be a useful tool to find people these days.
Cool. Awesome. Well, that's good to know. Well, Jon, that's it for today. You are our Local Expert Podcast guest for San Gabriel Valley in this episode. It was an honor speaking with you. I hope everyone received amazing amount of value. I know I did. There's a lot of golden nuggets in this episode for tax saving. Any questions you guys have their information. We're going to put it in the description. Other than that, I hope everyone has a wonderful, wonderful week, afternoon, weekend, whenever you're watching this. Jon, once again, thank you for coming on to the show.
Happy to be here.
All right, everybody. We'll see you guys in the next one.